Tuesday, and welcome to the MSLead Chronicles. It's a podcast on a mission in medical affairs and leadership. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy, Chad Fellers, we're going to have casual talk about important topics and challenges in leadership. And we are so glad you're here. Stay tuned.
Happy New Year and welcome back to another episode of MSLead Chronicles. I am your host, Chad Fellers, with my nifty sidekick, Mary Morton. How are you doing, Mary? Happy New Year to you.
I'm terrific, as always. Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
I'm good, but before we get started, can you change your shirt? I cannot believe you have a Hook 'em Horns shirt on today. That's going to turn off a lot of people.
Why?
From our podcast. You know that, right?
No, it won't. No, so there's two reasons I chose this shirt to wear today. Number one, we're about to play a very important game against the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
But also, this is last year's Sugar Bowl shirt.
Okay.
And since our guest today is going to be talking a little bit about MAPS, the Medical Affairs Professional Society, whose conference this year, it's going to be in New Orleans, where the Sugar Bowl is held. See, I'm like always thinking. It's always, yeah.
That is a lot of wasted brain cells, right? Trying to put all that together. Actually, that was pretty. I'm impressed, Mary.
Thank you.
You're starting off the new year with a bang. Well, let's knowing that our listeners have given us feedback that we are not always the best sports analogy experts in conversation, and that's not the focus. Let's go ahead and get into this, Mary. So I can't wait for this conversation. We always talking about the whole premise of MSLead Chronicles is around leadership development, leaders learning from leaders, being able to give away, invest in others. And so I think that this conversation today is going to be really, really applicable to our audience. So with that, Mary, why don't you share a little bit about our guest today?
Yes. So our guest today is the wonderful John Sandstrom, who probably over the last decade or so, I have worked for him in filling positions, I think at 3 different companies, one that became 2 or 3 different companies along the way. The Baxter, Shire, Takeda, and others as well. But the areas of his expertise are across pretty much everything in medical affairs and field medical and commercial going back. But across many therapeutic areas, most recently oncology and HUR and managed care. So he knows it all. He's got it all. But I'm gonna let him tell a little bit more about himself. So welcome to the show, John. Tell everybody about John.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I won't claim that I know everything, but I think I'm constantly learning, and I'm always willing to learn. And I think that's so important because I think once you stop learning, you just become a dinosaur and eventually become extinct. So I think that's really key and a key message, no matter where you're at. I started in sales, so a lot of people just, they started in medical affairs, but I have a number of years in the commercial side of the business, and actually at one point in my life thought I was going to be a sales training professional, and I have a number of years in sales training. I did transition into doing hands-on clinical experience in specialty and infusion pharmacy midway through my pharmaceutical career. And then went back into the pharmaceutical industry into medical affairs. And so I have a wealth of experience that I think makes me unique as a leader in medical affairs, in that a number of the roles that would be reporting into me, I've not only held those roles, whether it be an MSL or field HUR or strategy or ops lead or training professional, but I've built and led those teams. So as a leader, I just have a genuine understanding and care for the people that I would be leading.
I love hearing about the experience. I think about the whole being able to function out of your left side and right side of the brain or whatever, or being able to see the big picture. And I think that even just hearing your story about first starting in sales and knowing the importance of cross-functional collaboration, how this all fits together. It is not, when I first came into industry, it felt to me like it was the field of dreams, if you will. Like you could not cross a line. If you did, you can never go back or something like that, right? And so, but that is so not the case. So I love. Thanks for sharing about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say, one of the other things and my direct reports can always attest to this, is I always say, carve out time for yourself. No matter what you're doing in your career, you can get so wrapped up in your career. And this happened during COVID. So, I'd wake up in my pajamas, and then next going to bed in the same pajamas because I worked all day, right? You just roll out of bed and get on the computer. But you really need to do a reality check and say, what's important to you every day, and do that. For me, it's working out and mountain biking. So I do that consistently. And living here in Scottsdale, Arizona, there's tons of mountain biking trails. In fact, I'm probably going to go mountain biking after this, just to enjoy the outdoors. So it's really key, I think, to not only be focused on your career, but also focused on your personal life as well, and be consistent about that.
Extremely well-rounded.
Yeah.
Lots of things, and I don't want to sidebar too far, but, when we talk a lot about the different challenges in medical affairs, and one of the big ones is how the left arm doesn't know what the right arm is doing in the whole cosm of the pharmaceutical company, and so you have a really, like you said, a unique perspective because you've been in all of the little microcosms that engage with one another.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that's been extremely valuable in the cross collaboration.
Well, I think it's important. Some people, unfortunately, who get into R&D or medical affairs, and this is more of an older school of thought. They think they're just the science, right? And they only bring the science to the table, and they're not commercial or sales. But at the end of the day, I think we need to always recognize that we're not a 501c or an academic institution. We are a for-profit organization. And so within, being compliant, of course, it's really important to be compliant, but we also need to recognize that everybody in pharma is selling, regardless of whether you're in R&D or in your medical affairs or you're in the field sales force. You are representing the company, and you need to be ethical and fair balanced about what you present, but you are not just presenting the data, right? You are developing those relationships and presenting the data that could best benefit your customers. And I think that's key. Not being salesy like a used car salesperson, but really tailoring what you're presenting to your customer and knowing your customer to meet their needs.
Holy Moses. Based on all of your experience, we could probably talk for hours and hours on a lot of different topics. But, we did kind of come together for a particular premise. And that was to discuss a little bit about MAPS, a little bit about the Medical Affairs Professional Society. And I was about to say something that was going to get into your takeaways, and I don't want to do that. So, as per usual.
Speaking of key takeaways, yes. So let's lead off with that, John. We like to do that just to make sure, in case someone doesn't have time to listen to the entire podcast at the beginning, they can just know, and they can already apply some things or even start thinking about things as their day gets started. So with that, would you mind sharing your takeaways for today?
Yeah. So what's really key, my key takeaways are really giving back to medical affairs. So mentorship is really critical. Being a mentor, as well as taking advantage of the leadership that has experience in being a mentee and learning from leadership. And so that's one key takeaway. I also think it's important to really understand, I talked a little bit about dinosaurs, and back in the day, medical affairs was a support function And it is just so key to recognize that medical affairs is no longer a support function. It is a key player in the whole strategic planning process of any biotech or pharmaceutical company that wants to be successful. We can talk a little bit about why that is later on during our discussion. And then last but not least, I think MAPS is absolutely the most valuable tool that any medical affairs professional can use. It has so many resources within the MAPS, Medical Affairs Professional Association, but not only does the society provide those tools, there's a terrific opportunity for networking as well as learning from your colleagues within the organization.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this. It's MAPS is like not even 10 years old yet.
Yeah.
And just thinking about when I first saw about, so Kirk Shepard, who I guess at the time he was at one of my clients, I'm like, oh wow, this is really cool. I can't believe in less than 10 years what this organization has become. So what was it like in the very beginning? You were a charter member.
Well, let me tell you, it all starts even before MAPS. So, I'll do a shout out to Bob Numeroff, who hired me at Baxter, took a chance because I had no medical affairs experience and brought me in. And it was during that time that I learned that Bob had this philosophy, and I don't think it was Bob's philosophy. I think it was our organization's philosophy within medical affairs to have a one-up mentorship. And so Kirk was assigned to me as a mentor within the organization. And I got to mentor with Kirk once a month when he was a senior VP of R&D. And so that was a phenomenal experience. I really learned about the value of mentorship. And it was during this entire time that I really learned about medical affairs, because a lot of the philosophies surrounding launch excellence, and I remember the slide Kirk had with 3 legs: R&D, commercial, and medical affairs, with medical affairs being an organization that had a seat at the table, literally, and was part of the strategic process. All of these early thoughts about medical affairs were percolating at Baxter. And so I find it to have been a very valuable time to be exposed to that. Then, very shortly after that period, the Medical Affairs Professional Society was formed, and a number of the people within Baxter, such as Tricia and Ramin and Kirk, were all part of that initial organization. And it started small, but it was basically like a Baxter reunion, or even Delta. We all got together and it was
It's
great.
like the Blues Brothers, get the band back together. Yeah.
And then it grew and grew and grew exponentially to where it is today. And so I really valued that organization. And as a result, for what was given to me in my early days, I will continue to give back.
Wow. So multiplication, I hear that as well too. The one up mentorship. I've never heard that phrase before. I like that though. And it's really important. So what was the original mission, if you can recall, of MAP?
Yeah, I can't recall what was written, but I can recall basically what I observed. And it was really to establish medical affairs as a recognized profession within the industry and bring credibility to medical affairs, so that not only can we, drive and help commercialize the science behind all of these great therapies that our companies are developing, but also that we can really meet the needs of the patients as well as a prescriber. So I think it's really important to recognize that. And, I think, this continues to be part of the organization's mission today.
I can tell you that this is a passion area for Chad.
Mm-hmm.
He and I've had millions of conversations. That's probably not even an exaggeration about,
Right.
How, the days of medical affairs being the support person or the support department is long gone, and there's so much invaluable, I almost said valuable, but invaluable participation in medical affairs provides. So what do you, with regard to MAPS, because there has been a big shift in the past 10 years, right? What role do you think that organization played? Like, if MAPS never came to be, where do you think we'd be right now?
We've been trying to justify, our value and, and be continuing to be in an uphill battle to try to do that. I think we've evolved to a period now where the value of medical affairs is truly recognized, not only by R&D, but our commercial colleagues. And I think MAPS has a lot to do with that. I think that driving value as a medical affairs professional is so important, and being able to work cross-functionally is also important. So you really need to know who your customers are, not only externally, but internally as well, to be effective.
So I want to go back real quick, not to go off topic too much. It's really not off topic, but you talked about the multiplication component, right? Was there an intentional effort to continue to outreach to others? Was it organic? Tell us more about that, or do you even recall that?
Yeah, well, I would say the catalyst, when I think about it, is, and the catalyst is the reason my CV is a mess, because I had 4 different companies in 4 years. But those of us who know, Baxter spun off to Baxalta and then was acquired by Shire and then acquired by Takeda in a matter of 4 years. And so when you look at that core team that started at Baxter, Baxalta, a number of us went off to different companies. And so I think we were able to pollinate all these different companies with our great ideas from MAPS, and we were all medical affairs professionals in leadership roles. And we continued to talk about how great MAPS was. And, as a medical affairs leader myself, I often will use the annual MAPS meeting as a medical affairs meeting for my team. What better way, right, to have your team meeting and then use MAPS as a learning opportunity as well? You can apply what you're learning to your leadership team meeting or your staff meeting offsite.
That's a great takeaway in itself. Yeah. I love that idea. I think that's a fantastic investment within your team and within your company.
So you were just talking about the working group. So they're you guys call them FOGs. So
right.
It's functional
working group.
Functional area working groups. So there are, I think,
13
FOGs now.
We're 13.
13. What was the first one? Do you recall? Like, we need to put some groups together.
I know the first one I belong to and continue to belong to, but I don't know what the first one was. I would think it was strategy and launch excellence, because that was what really was most spoken about during MAPS. So I'd like to say my team was the first, but I won't take
So to clarify, which I think is really cool. So John is on the launch excellence FOG.
Strategy and launch. Yeah.
So moving over into your second takeaway, I think transitioning from what you were just saying is probably it's kind of a good segue. On the topic of the mentoring programs that are available within MAPS, are there different sort of categories of mentoring people who are looking to move into leadership, is specifically why I'm asking, or new leaders who can be mentored by current leaders?
Absolutely. That's a really good question, Marion. What MAPS does as part of the mentorship program is you basically provide your interests as a mentor, and also the mentee provides their interests. And then MAPS will match a mentee with a mentor. So it's pretty ideal. And so there is a definite connection. So you will have the opportunity to have a mentorship with somebody who's interested in whatever experience you have, for sure.
Oh, awesome. That's wonderful. So do you encourage the people that are on your teams to identify a mentor via the MAPS organization?
So MAPS as an organization has a mentorship program, which is completely separate from the FOGs. And so every year I volunteer to have 2 mentees. And they're usually people who are new to pharma who want to advance in their career. And so I spend about an hour every month for each of those 2 people. And we just have a discussion, whatever we want to talk about. They may have had a bad day and they want to talk about something that went wrong and, how to best address it. Or they want to talk about, how to leverage their career or interview for the next job opportunity. So it's a very flexible and informal process, but it's something that I find very rewarding. And, to that, and I try not to get too off topic, but I've actually encouraged mentorship within all my teams that I lead. And that goes all the way back to Baxter and, the mentorship with Kirk. And so, when I was at Sumitomo, a good example is that I actually did start a mentorship program within our medical affairs group. And I continue to mentor some of the mentees that are part of that organization because they asked if they could stay on as mentees with. And I think that's so rewarding, not only for the mentee, but for the mentor as well, because it gives you a chance to reflect on what's important to people that may be reporting into you directly. And what a great way to network with people and continue to have them on your loop so that, when you do get the opportunity to hire, who's best for that role.
So you said you had two positions, I guess, if you will, or mentee positions. So do you have one open, John? Maybe I can partner with you. This is
I'm always open to it. Yeah, anytime. I'm always open to having a new mentee. So actually, our MAPS mentee program, so the mentorship program is ended, and we're going into a new cycle. So I'm certainly always open, but it doesn't have to be officially through MAPS. I'm always open to providing career.
There's beauty in it, right, John? I mean, it's one of the things we are control freaks by nature, right? And we think about the things that are in our control and things that bring us joy and happiness. Sounds like you and I are similar in the idea of the beautiful thing about serving or giving away to others is you get to control that. And no one else does, right? I mean, you have the power of doing that, and the reward lasts so much more than trying to earn some kind of individual title and things like that. It's giving yourself away. There's so much value in it. So for 2 lucky people each year, I'm sure that they have, it's almost like the see one, do one, teach one type model, and so important.
It makes you more connected. And at the end of the day, I think organizations should really invest in mentorship programs because at the end of the day, it creates cohesion within the organization and it creates team loyalty because people really truly get to know each other. It gets so easy to be focused in your leadership role and try to lead and manage up, but you really need to remember your people and really appreciate that they're the ones who are responsible for why you're in the place that you are in, right?
John, we talk about that all the time, or that's one of the, and quite honestly, that's one of the major reasons, Mary and I have bantered for years about multiple things, but thinking about where can we give back and just seeing the idea that so many times people within medical affairs, they kill it as an individual contributor. The company recognizes that and they're like, oh, well, if they're doing that, then what if they multiply? But the reality is it is a different skill set. It is a different, it's a different mentality, right? So the KOL no longer is an external, it becomes your team. I would even say they become your number one customers. Yes, you're managing up and you have to please your boss and the company, but if your people, if you're not invested in them, you are very limited in the success, or you're limiting the success of the organization by doing that. So just hearing you share that story, I think it's so important to have that mental shift.
I've never seen an organization succeed with micromanagement. Yeah, never.
That's right. But when we think about our podcast, right? So we talked about its purpose. It's designed to serve leaders and aspiring leaders in medical affairs. It's very similar to what MAPS is doing, or it really is an extension of that. So with that, what do you think your greatest learnings from being involved have been, and how has it impacted your leadership approach?
Yeah. I would say that, because MAPS has grown into such a diverse organization, it even includes now the vendor aspect of medical affairs. So it used to just be medical affairs professionals within pharma and biotech. And so as the teams have diversified with people from different mindsets, whether it be a startup mindset, big pharma, biotech, or the vendor side of the role, you gain so many key learnings, and there's so many shared perspectives from the team that are addressed that has made the organization as strong as it is today.
It's almost been around 10 years, as we talked, or less than 10 years is what Mary said. What are the opportunities that you've seen over the years to really strengthen your skills within MAPS? So for the listeners out there that are not a part of it, or just a member and access the resources but have not really plugged in, where do you see the opportunities?
So the opportunities that I see, is actually to participate in MAPS, volunteer, because you're going to get the greatest amount of learning and the greatest opportunity for networking if you participate. To begin with, I would recommend actually joining MAPS. I think it's a valuable investment in your career, and some companies will pay for it, but if your company's not going to pay for it, it's still worthwhile to join. Why would you be in a profession and not be part of your professional organization? Right? You need to become a part of that community. Once you join, there are so many resources. There are chat boards where you can actually engage with your colleagues across the industry if you have got a question. There are archived podcasts, presentations, white papers, PowerPoints, a number of things that you can access. And they're all categorized based on your specialty, whether you be in medical communications, medical information, MSL. It's all based on what your area of expertise is within medical affairs. So from a resource perspective, I don't think there's anything that matches MAPS to this date. And then from the networking opportunities to get engaged, it's always out there. So I think anybody who's listening to this should, if they're not a member, should really look into membership and access those opportunities.
So, John, this is so good. Break this down for me, because I've got to be, or if we are true to course, listen, I don't have it all figured out. I'm still learning. I'm still trying. That's why we have guests like yourself on to learn from. I think what would be really helpful for our listeners is, okay, you just talked about, I've registered for MAPS. I'm now a member. I've got this resource, but what if you were to go back and do it again, or you were to join today? What steps would you take to get plugged in and actually start leveraging the network that's available to you?
I think, one of the things I would take advantage of right off the bat, and I don't think it wasn't awkward when I first started, but now it is, and I've gotten a tremendous amount of value from it, is actually attending a masterclass. So whether it be, a masterclass in launch excellence or strategy or medical communications, I think that's a tremendous opportunity for networking with people who have similar interests within your own area of interest within medical affairs, as well as leadership within that area. I just recently co-chaired a launch excellence class in October in Boston, and we had 52 medical affairs professionals over a day and a half at this launch excellence workshop. And it was a terrific opportunity. I met some people within the audience who continue to stay connected with me. And I could see, the audience, as usual, just networking among each other and sharing ideas and, from different companies, different aspects of how to get things done. What better way to, commune as an organization with the same interests and foster those relationships for a lifetime, literally.
Hmm.
So MAPS has chapter groups too.
We do.
And there, I guess you guys are, or we, because we're all members, right? Chad and I are also members. So we have different chapters, and I know there are other chapters that are in development, and the chapter that I'm in is probably the newest one. And this is contrary to what most people in Texas would say, but we are in the South Central chapter. Texas does not like to be called anything but Texas, but anyway. So we're in the South Central chapter that goes from Texas over to Florida. And so we have a sort of a training and networking event coming up on the 23rd down in Houston. And so, and I think I just reposted about it. And it's a great opportunity in a smaller forum to really get to talk to people, where you may think, the big giant national conference is like, how am I going to get to really network with people? But then I would add on to that. I love going to the meetings. And as a recruiter who tries to really, really understand the world I'm working in, I love the way that the sessions are set up. So for anybody who is listening or watching who has not been to a MAPS meeting before, it's very workshopy, and there's opportunities. If you sit at a round table in a room full of 10 tables, and you're going to have an MSL director, a medical strategy person, a medcoms person, a medical writer, med ed training, and you're going to be working on a directive together. And it's such a great way to learn from each other, from the lens that they're looking through. I love the meetings. I have never attended a master class, but I would love to. So there's so much to get out of the organization.
I like the way the meetings have tracks based on your area of interest. So whether you want to go on the medical communications or MSL track or whichever track is of interest, you can follow those tracks as well. So the workshops that you would attend would be relevant to what you want to gain. But also the keynote speakers, I've never been to a MAPS where I didn't like the keynote speakers. I always learned so much even from the keynote speakers and also the presentations that were done to the general audience. There's just so much to gain from an annual meeting. Highly encourage going to it. And New Orleans is going to be awesome this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I wasn't able to go to Puerto Rico, but the one before that in Nashville, when you're talking about like the keynote. So I think it was the last day when we had Henrietta Lack's family on.
Yep.
That I got chills just thinking about. That was so moving. But talking about the meeting that's coming up in New Orleans, and what the city of New Orleans has just been through, are there going to be opportunities for some volunteerism that you're aware of while during the meeting time?
I'm not aware of what will be happening specifically with volunteerism, but MAPS has always been good about volunteering in the city that they're in. So I would not be surprised to see something relevant. They're always giving back to the community, which is another great aspect of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you a little bit earlier, Chad.
I'm used to it, Mary. It's I get the last words in with you all the time. It's yes, ma'am, right? So no worries about that. I was just even thinking back though, John, about the idea of traveling to these. This is an investment that people have to make, right? They're going to fly somewhere or whatever, but I think it's time. We've talked about things like IDP and all those, and we think about every company out there is. They give this, there's a nugget that's dangled, really is a nugget, carrots. I'm not sure exactly whatever, but there's an opportunity to be able to invest in yourself from a development standpoint. And honestly, I don't know if everybody really takes advantage of it. This would be a great way potentially of putting that down, right? I know that most companies are committed. If it's on paper that you want to develop or you want to go to MAPS, they will fund it. If it's one of those things that you may just ask your boss if you go to, you may not have budget to do it. But that is one way to think through some of these things as well, too, to get where you want to go, right? So I'm just thinking about practical application with that.
A lot of people don't realize they have that resource available.
Yeah. Even $500 or whatever that is, right? Whatever that 500, 1,000, whatever that typically is. I mean, that will help pay for a plane ticket or whatnot. Nevertheless,
the hotel is always discounted too. So, you get the group rate. So it's good to get in early and get into the hotel with the group rate. So that's really important as well. But, I encourage leadership. I mean, I'll just call it out right now, encourage, your up and coming people to go to these meetings as well as master classes and fund it out of your budget. I've done it. I just recently sent two of my people in medical communications to a medical communications master class down in San Diego, and they got a terrific amount out of it. And, it's just, what way could you not invest in your people in a better way, right? And even the master class in Boston, I did the same. I had some of my folks attend that class as well, and actually recruited one of my faculty, Scott Flanders, who's just an awesome strategy person, and had him provide an excellent strategy workshop for the class. So, yeah, it's just get your team.
It's a small investment with a potential big return, right? So again, it's beginning with the end in mind for your teams, for your organization, and if we really want to be that that central or that pillar within the organization, right? Beyond just that supplemental or type of approach, right? You want to be on the front lines. That what a better way than to involve your people and empower them. That's there's so many benefits to that. I mean, as far as job satisfaction, all those types of things, less turnover because you're investing in others. So that sounds exciting.
And another thing, I'll throw out there, we're talking about, getting it funded. I mean, if you do have a talent, you're a leader within an area. I mean, it's usually, if you're involved with MAPS, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, but you can be recruited as faculty for these workshops, whether it be at the annual meeting or at a master class. And then MAPS will pay for your expenses, which would include airfare as well as the hotel room. So a number of my colleagues from past, jobs I recruited to the master class, and, they had all expenses paid. So that's another thing to tap into within MAPS as an organization. You give and they'll give back.
I was just about to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. I mean, it's okay. And it goes back to the idea of giving away provides fulfillment. It's okay to be selfish in ways. That is a selfish benefit in ways, is because it when you give away, it has positive impact in both ways. And I love that that MAPS rewards in that way the people that want to give away. What a great investment, even by MAPS itself. I mean, you can see why there's multiplication. So with that, as we're getting close to wrapping things up, John, so you've seen an evolution of MAPS over almost 10 years now. So in your idea, your strategic thinking, where do you think there's opportunity? Where do you see MAPS evolving in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think that it will continue to grow exponentially is what I'll see happening with MAPS. And I think while the resources are phenomenal, I think that the resources that are available in real time will continue to grow as well within MAPS in the next 5 years. So, those are the two aspects that I think I see happening.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mary, I'm going to listen. Just because I am the selfless person I am, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask the last question as we wrap up today. If you have anything else to share or ask or no.
Well, I wanted to take the opportunity to remind everybody when the upcoming MAPS conference is going to be. And that is going to be the week of March 23rd. And it will be in the wonderful city of New Orleans. Chad, you've got some interesting stories from Bourbon Street. I mean, we won't go into them
We
now.
won't go into those today.
No,
maybe
but
an Ask Chad
man, I hope they
anything or
get
something like
recreated.
that.
Oh gosh, I can't wait.
God bless the workers or yeah.
But I just wanted, if you can get away the week of March 23rd and make it to this meeting, you if you've never been, you will absolutely not regret it. There are so many resources within this organization. I mean, we did a podcast last year that kind of generated out of one of the white papers. And as far as like networking, being a part of that white paper, I think had like 19 authors on it. So you talk about networking opportunities. I mean,
Absolutely.
These 19 people didn't all work together. They worked at different organizations, so you get an opportunity to really put your heads together and learn from each other. But no, I am just so grateful, John, for you to join us today and put up with Chad. And
pleasure.
And I'm looking forward to meeting you again up in New Orleans. And if Chad's good, I'll introduce you guys in person too. But no, no, that's what I got. Anything in closing?
Yeah.
Chad?
Any final thoughts from you, John? I guess I would love to before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I would just tell the audience out there that medical affairs is in a great period right now. As an organization, a profession, we have a lot of credibility. We have the opportunity to work cross-functionally across the entire pharma biotech organization and show value. And so, I encourage people to figure out how to tap into that. And you couldn't have a better way to learn how to do that through the MAPS organization.
Well said, John. One up mentorship, MAPS, the importance of connection, the resources, the two opportunities beneath you to be able to learn from you. I mean, we've learned a lot of different things, and I think the thing that excites me is there is strength in numbers as well too. And if you're wanting to be able to move your organization more from where things were, that supportive role, that's tradition, to advance even a little bit further to where medical affairs can actually become that true pillar within your organization. There's not a better place to learn from others, to network from others, such as John and the other leaders at MAPS. John, thank you so much for making time to connect with us today, to share your story. And the last thing I would ask is, will you promise to come back and visit with us again? You've got so much experience that we'd love to pick your brain.
I love to talk. So, Mary, Chad, this has been so much fun. So if you're willing to have me back, I'm more than happy to join you again.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Hopefully Mary will not be wearing that shirt next time, and we can, it won't be so distracting. So anyway, listeners, thanks so much for joining us again. Mary, why are you giving me that look? It's probably, thanks so much for joining us again, listeners. We look forward to the next time we get to connect together. Remember that leaders don't develop in isolation. Leaders learn from leaders. Think about mentoring. See one, do one, teach one. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Bye.